So this, and this is very much rooted in language from advocates. Obviously, many of us are, deeply motivated by the, terrible effects of current immigration policy on families, and trying to, have something that's more humane and more and better for families. And there is family is a very powerful, value and metaphor in American discourse, but and what we found is that we can be effective, but we have to build certain other values into that. So let's look at the lines and listen. Oops.
Most families moved here in the past for the same reason that Most families moved here in the past for the same reason that American immigrants move here today, to raise a family in a land of opportunity. Through the hard work and sacrifice of their mothers and fathers, the American children of immigrant parents are able to live the American dream here in the home of the free. But some politicians push deportation policies that separate husbands from their wives and children from their parents. No reasonable person feels it's worth wrecking marriages and separating families to deport every immigrant living here. 1 out of 4 children born in America have immigrant parents. Students, Little League players, prom queens, and it's in our best interest to ensure all children are able to reach their full potential right here in this country. Husbands, mothers, sons, and daughters deserve to stay with their loved ones, so we should work to keep families together here in America.
So notice there that we do have still the yellow line, the shifters. We do have a group within the persuasion audience that is coming along with us here. Like they get it. We start to, Little League players and prom queens, and like, yeah, I recognize that, right? They see it in their communities, right? It's real. But we did lose some of the other persuadable voters there. Also, when we sort of attacked the politicians on the other side for being hateful, we weren't really bringing all the persuadable voters along there. So we wound up with somewhat lower scores on the overall persuasion audience on this one. But we still do pretty well with the shifters, very strong with our own advocates. It's obviously something our base is excited about saying and talking about families. So still have a little work to do, I think, in the middle of this one, but we certainly are on track for something we can use. Mm-hmm.
We're gonna.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Sure. One is that, and we learned this in the focus groups when we presented this type of a message, was people said a lot of people don't believe still that families are actually being torn apart by deportation policies. That you assert that, we assert that, and we have voters say, well, is that really true? And don't they all go together? And there's a lot of skepticism and doubt about that. So that's one issue that we have. But I think part of also is that we tried here to sort of point the finger at the bad guy, and our base loved that. The persuadables were like, wait a minute, is that really who the bad guy is? They didn't quite, something about the way we described their attitude and how their policy is hurting people. People just kind of got mixed up about that and didn't feel that, they didn't understand clearly who those villains were and why they should be opposed to them. So we've got two problems there. One is just an awareness, I think, and a lack of, they don't have the same facts or experiences in their head that we as advocates do. And secondly, that we're somehow where the contrast we're drawing isn't quite resonating with, again, voters in the middle, even though we're doing pretty well with the base on this one.
I'm gonna finish it up. Oh, yeah. No, can't ask me questions yet. Okay, so here we are, right? We're back here. Some of these messages you didn't see, but you'll get them when you get the handout. And this is where our messages fall out in terms of popularity and ideology. So we have our galvanizing messages, our messages that really, really activate the base. Our base likes to say them. They're not quite as persuadable, but they're the thing that sort of the most staunch advocates really want to say. And then we have our persuasive messages. They're also galvanizing. By the way, when we did this, anything that tested well, but then that advocates didn't like, any word or sentence, we took it out. Even if it dialed through the roof, if advocates didn't like it, we took it out. So here is what the overall purpose of this project was. This was a rebranding effort of immigrants. You can see that these messages are light on policy. Really, only Roadmap to Citizenship goes into the policy debate, because this was a first foray into how are we going to rebrand immigrants. And what we know from marketing and branding is that you want to achieve an overlap between what your brand represents and your audience. And so here, this is the overlap that we're trying to achieve, right? This is the commonality we're trying to establish. When we asked people, how would you refer to immigrants? These are the phrases that come through in terms of the actual branding of what who immigrants are. You can see from the opposition, of course, you already knew, illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, strong here, but actually getting weaker, right? 39 over there with the aliens from the opposition. Of course, we do not like these terms. And from us, these are our terms. Undocumented is not highlighted. Undocumented is other. If it's it's other. Also, it only serves to highlight what immigrants lack. It does not tell us what immigrants have or do or are. And it is still within the legal framework. Aspiring citizens and new Americans, those are our brands. So we're going to replace these words with the other words, right? Instead of reforming an immigration system, which implies that immigration is a problem, we're going to create a process because one doesn't exist. Instead of a path which animals forge through the forest, we're going to have a roadmap which people drive on. Instead of paying taxes, which people don't believe is going on, we're going to go to the larger framework because this is the value that people want to believe is happening, that there is a commitment to the country. Do jobs no one wants, which is insulting to everyone. Contribute. No human is illegal, which is straight into their framework. Don't think of an elephant. All people have rights. Secure the borders. That's their moral high ground. People move as ours. Rule of law. Again, their value, freedom is ours. When you ask people to do a value cluster about America, the #1 value that comes through is freedom, more than any other. There's a reason why they stick so tightly to that. And our value here is to be able to go where you want to go, say what you want to say, and do what you want to do. Home of the brave, land of the free. And that is the new messaging.
So we have time, apparently, for maybe just 2 or 3 questions. So should we do them real fast? They're right there in the middle. Put your hand up first. Yes. Stand.
Can you guys hear me? I just want to encourage you not to say, we are not criminals. When Nixon got on TV and said, I am not a crook, what do you think that made the public think? If you're not actually a criminal, you don't need to walk around talking about how you're not a criminal.
Yeah, I'm going to.
you've put your finger on a really interesting question, because I think the fact is, if you look through the research, that this idea of committing to this country and committing to being an American is pretty essential for people to feel that, you know, this is a we, this is us, as opposed to us and them. And that term, aspiring citizens, is very much meant to create that. But you're right, it's connected to an idea of people immigrating and staying here and being and becoming Americans, not staying something else. And it's just a difference. It's a different goal, honestly. And so I think we have to sort that out in terms of what we're advocating for at what time. But certainly aspiring citizens, aspiring Americans, or new Americans, creates that sense of inclusiveness and togetherness.
The only thing I'd add to that is that there's two things going on in aspiring citizens, right? There's citizens and there's aspiring. Sounds pretty straightforward. Sometimes I like to say people pay me to tell them that words mean things. So aspiring, what's going on there is that you're presupposing that these are people who are capable, smart, ambitious, have a plan, make a plan, execute a plan. And that's important. Because that is true. But, the tension, David answered it, I agree. I mean.
But let me also say about aspiring, you're also acknowledging with that word that they are not citizens.
Right.
So it's not like you're saying you're not a citizen, therefore you're less. You're saying you are on your way to, and aspiring has all those other positive values associated with it, as Anat said. So I think it's very powerful in that sense. But it is aiming toward a goal of, bringing people into in a more permanent way the country, as opposed to staying here or remaining separate somehow.
But there is a reason we gave you more than one message.
Well, let's thank Anat and David for a presentation today. I think it was really fascinating.
If anybody is interested in being trained to spread this, as you know, if our words don't spread, our words don't work. And so we need everybody in every state to know this and to start using it. If you are interested in being a person who can give this presentation, it's designed so that anybody can give it. Just come see me.
Great, thanks again. I hope you will agree with me, as I mentioned earlier, that it's really refreshing. I have to say, since I first started working with them over a year ago, we got to dial test some of it, we got to participate in the focus groups, and I've actually used it, and to see the difference in how people react to some of this, especially some more mainstream folks, right? And I think what's especially refreshing is that the field as a whole can actually really get behind this. I feel like in the past, some of the critiques have been, the messaging has been very much from inside the Beltway, really trying to convince policymakers rather than kind of the field as a whole and everybody. So thanks again.